Hey guys, today we'll be doing LeetCode number 128, longest consecutive sequence. This is a medium question. Uh, Before we get started on this question, so 100, 4, 200, 1, 3, 2. The most straightforward approach for this would just be to sort the array 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, 200. Then figure out the longest consecutive sequence within this array 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you would return 4. That's the length, right? But this solution of sorting gives you an n log n time complexity of n log n, and the question states that you must write an algorithm that you could do it in n log n and you could submit it, it will pass. There's no issues with that. But to get the O of n time complexity, that means that we have to do one pass. So one loop through the array inside the thing, and then essentially we have to get the sequence. So how do we go about this, right? The one way to actually count a sequence, right? So when you have 1, you could check if 1 plus 1, 2 is in the array, if 2 plus 1, 3 is in the array, 3 plus 1, 4 is in the array, right? Then you could say we are forming a sequence over here. But how do we determine that 1 is the start of a sequence? Because we don't have 0 in the array. So 0 plus 1, that's impossible because we don't have 0 to start with, right? So how would we figure out that a particular number is the start of a sequence and that we should essentially start counting from that point onwards? We would do that by checking with the left neighbor actually. So if we do 1 minus 0, 1 minus 1, sorry, 0, we would check is 0 in the array. It's not. So that would mean that anything that has to do with 1, so like the sequence would start from 1. We could apply the same logic for 100. Is 99 in the array? It is not. So we could say, okay, any number include after 100, including 100, we can start forming a sequence, right? And we would calculate that. Same for 200 minus 1. We would see 199 is not in the array, and we would say, okay, it is the start of a sequence. We can start counting the sequence now. But to speed up this whole process of looking up numbers in the array, the first thing that should come to your mind is a hash set, because an array lookup itself would cost you O of n, whereas a hash set would give you the same amount in O of 1. So the first thing we would do is we would convert the numbers we have into set, right? The duplicates don't really matter, because at the end of the day, if it is 1, 1, 2, the longest sequence is still just 2, right? If it's 0, 1, 1, 2, then it still is just 3, right? We don't care about this, okay? So if we say longest that we have right now is 0, or you could say the answer even, then we would do for num in num set. So loop through the num set. If number minus 1 not in our set, then we know that we are at the start of a sequence, right? A possible start of the sequence. So before we start that, we could actually just write out seq equals to 0 over here, sequence equals to 0. Then, sorry, we could write it down here actually. There, we would do sequence equals to 0 over here. Then we would do, well, so you could technically have number plus equals 1 in numset. But another way you could do it is, since we have 0 over here, we can simply just do val num plus sequence. So if the number is, right, the number plus 1 or number 1 plus 2 is in this thing, then we can do sequence plus equals 1, correct? And we could simply just store the longest that we would get, so whichever one ends up being the longest. So first, actually, I would explain this. Num plus sequence, so when we're at 1, we determine 1 to be the start, right? Start of a sequence. It would work. It would go 1 plus 0, 1 plus 1, 2 would pass, 1 plus 2, 3 would pass, 1 plus 3, 4 would pass, correct? And every time we would do this. And so at the end, we would just do answer, maximum of the current answer that we have, and the sequence that we're on. At the end, just return your answer, and you should have the length of the array, length of the longest sequence, sorry. That's it for this question, really. So the main trick was identifying what constitutes a start of a sequence, and then applying the same 1 plus 1, 2 plus 1. Like I said, you can even do num plus 1 in numset. You can code up, like you can just change the code a bit, and then you could do it for the same thing. And that's about it for this question.